So it's 2026 and you think you know all of the real estate scams and all the scams that are out in the market, but you might not, because some things have changed. So I want to talk to you about some scams that are going in the rental market right now, and actually how we were most recently faced with one, a renter trying to get us to edit a contract. When you're looking in Facebook Marketplace and you're looking at Craigslist, you're looking at these different places, you start seeing, I think Nextdoor also, you start seeing these listings for rentals. Single families are hot right now for rentals. A lot of people are looking for them, especially in Southern California. And you know, the photos look good. It looks like it's a reputable company. You see the real estate agent listed on there, the property manager listed on there. And then you go to Google and you search and you see that other person and everything's looking good, right? But what you're not paying attention to is the details. So make sure you are matching phone numbers. Make sure you are matching emails. There are also places on the Department of Real Estate's website in each state where you can verify if a license number is valid, and also if a license number has any flags against it where they've done something that's been reported for the Bureau of Real Estate. Rental scam victims have lost an average of $2,000 per person in 2025. That's a 21% increase since 2023. Now, this is just from California, okay? Social media, 88% of the scams are originating from Facebook and Craigslist. Individuals in the age group of 18 to 29 are more likely to lose money on rental scams than other people. Why? They're moving into the job market. They're coming out of high school and college. They probably never signed a lease before, so everything looks really good to them. It's also happening to homeowners who are relocating to other locations, who still want to keep their property here as a rental until they get everything figured out wherever they're going. This can be a problem because you have property management companies out there who are actually also targeting the homeowner. They're getting you to sign a property management agreement with them that they can sublease your apartment, your condo, your single family in ways that you didn't even know they could sublease it, but it's in like this one little segment of the lease. And they come to you with the lease from the property management company to you. That is something that they have written, or their attorneys have written separately. It is not a good idea to work directly with those companies who are trying to sublease your property. It took us over a year to sell one of our clients' homes because they call this Airbnb arbitrage. These people are being trained on, hey, that house over there is going to lease for $4,000. I'm going to offer the property owner $5,500, and then I'm going to have this little article in the subleasing department that says I can sublease it on Airbnb or however I want to sublease it. And they can do that legally because you just signed a document that said that they could. Okay? So please make sure you understand who you're working with, who you're talking to. You need people who have done this before. You need property management folks who are real estate folks who have done this before. There are tons of ways that you can get scammed. You can also scam yourself by trying to do this on your own and not knowing the rules and regulations from the state about disclosures to the tenants. One of those big ones that we've talked about in the past is when the tenant is signing something, you have to notify the tenant what their rights are. The reason that the tenants have to be notified what their rights are by the landlord is because of these scams. Like, we're talking about a 21% increase in rental scams. Over 43% of the people who get wrapped up in these scams never get their money back. And they're not going for low amounts of money. They're going for like, hey, you can pay me $1,000 deposit so you can come check this property out, you know, or you pay me, you know, the $50 rental credit check and you run it. And then the next thing you know, they're like, oh, well, the tenants can't move out until the day before the 1st. So when you deposit your rent on the 31st, or you deposit your security deposit on the 31st, we'll show you the property. Next thing you know, you show up on the 1st to kind of talk to somebody about when you're moving in or whatever. And the homeowners live in there. They have no idea. They're like, I didn't even put this property up for rent. Why are you at my front door? just because you're a real estate agent does not mean that you know anything about property management. That does not mean that they know anything about investments. A real estate license is very easy to get. You do not learn these skills and these opportunities and these scams until you are in the field doing the work. So make sure you know who you're working with. That's the only thing I could say about that. If the rent is below market value, that's a warning sign. If the landlord is out of town or unreachable or only reachable by text message and they don't like to talk on the phone, whatever, that's a red flag. If they refuse to show you the property in person, that's a red flag. If they request payment via wire transfer, cash app, or any type of cryptocurrency, that can also be a red flag. Make sure if you're going to do a wire transfer, because a lot of people do wire transfers for deposits, because sometimes the deposit's $3,000, $4,000, that it's going to the property management company or the owner of record, and you can look that up online. So just do a little bit of research and it'll help you save a lot of money, and it'll help you have security of mind. The contracts that a real estate agency is using, like us, for rentals has been written by a group of attorneys that represent the California Association of Realtors. So you are getting a document that has been vetted probably hundreds of times over the years, and also has been incorporated into the judicial system in a way. Outside of that, there are places where we can write things in on those contracts as real estate professionals with a license called other terms. One of the ways that we protect our clients is that we have an attorney that has joined our team and is on staff with us. So we have somebody to review those documents. And here's what happened to us recently. We had a condo downtown. We were thinking about selling it for the client, and we also listed it for rent. And the next thing we know, we're at the final phases of the lease. And the tenant decided that she wanted us to write in the section where the dates are at the front of the contract. She wanted us to include a box in that area that said basically she would have the right to extend the contract. Now keep in mind, you can do things like that, but it has to be written and done in certain areas where you're not editing the contract that's been written by that group of attorneys that have basically turned this over as an approved document to use for a rental. So we ended up losing the contract with the tenant. And, we basically told the tenant, we're not going to do that. We're not going to edit a contract that's been written by attorneys so that you can extend, because basically by us adding this little clause into that area on this contract near the dates, near the terms at the top, then it would have said the only person who could extend the lease would be the tenant. Well, what if the tenant continued to extend the lease every 6 months for years and years and years, and the owner really couldn't kind of vibe in there because it had been written somewhere that it wasn't supposed to be? So even though that might not have happened, that is the type of things that are going on that people don't realize. When you manipulate something in a contract and you move something around, it could have a very negative effect on your client and also on your business as a real estate professional. You also have to look at AI-powered fraud that's happening right now. These people are professional tenants. They understand the rules and the regulations of law. A lot of times they will negotiate with a previous landlord to not go through eviction because they don't want the eviction to show up on their record. I had a tenant back in 2005 that was renting a room from me and basically just decided to stop paying me rent. I'm living in the house with this person at this time, and he just decided to stop paying rent. Like, I wasn't a licensed real estate agent yet, but I had done enough research in the field and worked in the field for many, many years. So I was able to get myself out of that situation. But those are the types of situations that are happening right now. We also had another client reach out to us recently because he let a worker in one of his properties who was helping him remodel the property. He let the worker move in for a couple of months, and now the worker's saying he doesn't want to move out as we're getting ready to list the property for sale. So keep in mind, you need a contract. You need a contract that's been vetted and looked at by a licensed real estate professional. A lot of times these property management companies that you are hiring to do this job might not have somebody who's licensed on, on Quick Dial. It could be a large company and it takes you a while to get to the person that actually has the license, because you can't have workers that work under you without a license. So make sure you know what you're getting yourself into with these companies and look for these red flags. A couple of other red flags that we're noticing in the rental market right now is within the past 3 to 5 years, the state of California has decided that because people were going up for rent and there were less properties for rent than there were renters in several larger cities and communities in California, that you could take your credit score and your previous credit check to the next location that you were trying to find an apartment or a home for rent, and you could use that if the organization would allow you to. So nowadays you can get manipulated so easily by that too, because it's so easy for people to take a PDF and drop it into Adobe or drop it into one of these systems and edit it and then print it on a printer. And then the next thing you know, it looks so good, you would never know that their credit score was not 780, it was 580, right? You would never even pick up on that. So there's a lot of different things going on right now, which is very important that you make sure you know who you're working with for some of these things. And then also, scammers have cloned some of our listings before, where we're publishing it on Zillow, we're publishing it on Redfin, we're publishing it on the MLS. We have our own internal, platform. We have our own website. We have all these places that we publish these listings because we have access to those places and we have permission from the owners. And then the next thing we know, 10, 15 days in, we start getting phone calls from renters that are trying to rent the property that we're trying to sell, because the scam on that side has been that they take the pictures of the listing, they make it look really good. They have an email address very close to what our email address for our company would be. And then you start communicating with them and you haven't checked the phone numbers. You haven't checked the email address perfectly. It could have an extra dot in it or something like that. You just pulled it up on Google and you looked and you're like, oh yeah, that's a legitimate company. Take some time. If you're an owner and you're getting ready to rent your unit, you need to make sure that you're taking the time to look through the organizations and the companies that offer property management. Secondarily, if you're the renter, take some time, look through the phone numbers in the emails, make a couple extra phone calls, try to get somebody different on the phone if it's the same person answering every time. There's a million ways for you to protect yourself, but rushing through something is not the strategy right now. You need to take your time on these things. You need to make wise decisions. You don't just jump and knee jerk and pull around to try to get an apartment. It's something feeling like you're being pressured or you're losing your timeline for what you needed to do, then it's a good time to reevaluate that. So wanted to give you some local real estate rental market scams, some ways that you can protect yourself from fraud, and some common things that are happening out there for both renters and the property owners who are looking to rent these places. So as the property owner, you do have to deliver something that's called the Tenant Protection Act, whether or not your property qualifies for it or your tenant qualifies for it or not. It is required. And a lot of places, a lot of property management companies, a lot of these folks, they're not paying attention to these new rules and regulations that are coming into play in the state every year. You miss one of these documents, you miss one of these disclosures, and the next thing you know, you've not followed the proper procedure to have the tenants in your property, and now you're in trouble. So make sure you know who you're working with, make sure you know what the strategy is, and give yourself enough time to make smart decisions, because once you start getting pushed, once you start getting pressed, once you start worrying about the amount of money that you're spending, you're no longer focused on what you need to be focused on, which is this property right for me? Is this tenant right for me? Is this home right for my family if I'm the tenant? In the neighborhood where I want to be, have it driven by in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon. There are things you should be doing rather than rushing. So let's make sure that you have a good plan for that. If you need more contact information about rentals, and you're looking for somebody just to kind of guide you through, happy to have a conversation with you. Please like and subscribe, DM, however you want to get in touch with us. We will have these conversations with you for free to try to help you, because we want to be the protector. So Jag Real Estate's here for you. rentals, property management, whatever you've got, we can do it.